Nana Shastra Vicharanai Kanipano Sadharma Samstapako Lokanam Hitakarino Tribhuvane Manyo Sharanya Karo Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Dandena Mataliko Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the six Goswamis, namely Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus they're honored all over the three worlds, and they're worth taking shelter of because they're absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastya Chadeshatarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchikalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha Paditanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna. So devotees, today we will at least begin, and we'll see, perhaps we'll be able to finish chapter 5 of the Nectar of Devotion, the purity of devotional service. Yes. So this is the last part of the introduction to the general subject of sadhana bhakti. And, well, on Monday, or when we do finish this chapter, we'll move on to chapter 6, and that is the beginning of the discussion of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, the practice of devotional service according to rules and regulations. So let's make our way through the chapter. It has similarities to the previous chapter, meaning there are many quotations to support the point. What is the point? Well, the point is particularly that devotional service is higher, more blissful, and just on a different level to material life, material sense gratification, materialistic life like that. As for the last couple of days, we were reading how devotional service surpasses liberation. So the idea here is basically devotional service surpasses material life, you could say. So, yes, there are three sections, as far as I can see at least. There are three sections here in this chapter. The first section is from paragraph 4, paragraph 1 to paragraph, is it 4? Let me just check. Paragraph, I think it's 4, yes, 4. Paragraph 1 to paragraph 4, which is more or less like an introduction to the subject and bringing up some interesting points in the course of everything. So in the first paragraph then, we begin that, well, let me just read something from here. All of the previous instructions imparted by Srila Rupa Goswami in his broad statements can be summarized thus. As long as one is materially inclined or desirous of merging into the spiritual effulgence, one cannot enter into the realm of pure devotional service. Pure devotional service. So then he continues on basically to make the point that devotional service is transcendental to all material considerations and standards and different aspects of life on the material platform, where you are from, what class or caste, you could say, social position you have, your education, all these different things. Devotional service is transcendental to all these things, all these very like typical material considerations. And it doesn't have any cause within that realm, the realm of material life. On the level of within material life, there are many things which are causes of many other things in material life. But Krishna consciousness is not caused by anything in material life. And ideally, devotional service, or particularly pure devotional service, is executed, and we could say it should be, it must be, at worst it really should be carried out without any hope for material gain. And it cannot also be affected by any material considerations, unless we, of course, that depends to what degree we are or are not on the material platform. If we're on the material platform to some degree, particularly if, to quite some degree, then yes, material circumstances can affect us, and by affecting us, they'll affect our devotional service. But ultimately, in and of itself, pure devotional service cannot be affected by any fluctuations on the material level, the ups and downs and different goings on the material level. Devotional service will go on regardless. So as such, it's open to everyone. It's open to just everyone. There are no limitations. The only limitations are really within our minds. And that, why is that? How is it open to everyone? Because it is the constitutional nature of every living entity. Jivera Swarupaya Krishnera Nityadas. The constitutional nature of the living entity, the jiva, the soul, is to be the eternal servant of Krishna. And yes, so whatever one's position in all these terms, as we've already mentioned, whatever one's situation is in material terms, it certainly doesn't need to be affected by those considerations. Although, like I said, if we are not so spiritual, then even some small happening on the material platform may have some effect on us, which may then influence our devotional service. So that's the first paragraph. And to go deeper into this subject, Srila Prabhupada gives very interesting and it's kind of very crucial description in the second paragraph. Basically, what he's saying there is that there was a group of people, or you could say there have been and there still are, groups of people who have tried to sort of, what's the term, not sabotage, but hijack, who have tried to hijack the process of devotional service by finding some, you could say clever ways to claim monopolies of it, or to claim at least, if not monopolies, at least special rights within devotional service, which are only available to them and other people, other people who are not within their group. They just can't, by definition, they have no access to such things. So Prabhupada gives the example. It's one example, there are others, there are more, but it's a real classic example. After the time of Lord Chaitanya, after the time of Lord Nityananda, in Bengal, or areas which were influenced by the Bengali culture, or like areas where Bengali people settled, like Vrindavan, all around the Vrindavan area. So this group of people who claimed to be descendants of Lord Nityananda, they called themselves Nityananda Vangsa, and called themselves also the Goswami caste. And they claimed, and they did their level best. We must give them credit for trying hard. They really tried hard to hijack the higher levels of Krishna consciousness, meaning things like being a guru and being, like a priest, you could say, which includes being a guru, but being a guru is like the highest part of being a priest, according to their interpretation of things. So, as Prabhupada says, first of all, they claimed to be the descendants of Lord Nityananda, which may or may not be accurate. But whether it's accurate or not doesn't make a big difference. You can be the descendant of anyone, but if you're not maintaining a proper standard in Krishna consciousness, then you cannot be like a priest, which includes being a guru. You cannot do those functions. Then you are what you are. That may sound a little kind of silly or unnecessary to say, but people are what they are. And we have to recognize people for what they are in terms of their nature and the condition that they're in. And if someone is advanced in Krishna consciousness through practice and chanting and knowledge and service and service attitude and humility, all these important considerations, then they must be taken for what they are, for being advanced devotees or more advanced devotees. Whereas if someone is basically on the material platform, engaged in a fair amount of material activity and not very active spiritually, and maybe not active at all spiritually, but rather just working and making a living and living, then that's what they are. They're basically, you could say, working class people with maybe some peripheral connection to Krishna consciousness, but they're definitely not special, spiritual, transcendental Krishna conscious people. I actually know some of the Nityananda Vamsa personally from Vrindavan, and they have a temple just down past, it's a couple of 100 meters past the Radha Damodar temple on the same side on the left, heading towards the Yamuna. You go inside a little bit and you come to this, it's a very nice, it's quite a nice place. Nityananda Vat, the banyan tree of Lord Nityananda, or Shringarvat, the banyan tree where Lord Krishna decorated Radharani. And they have nice deities and they're pleasant people. And their brothers there, they take it in turns to worship the deity, maybe a month each, or it's something like that. And then the rest of the time they work, which means most of the time they work. And the one who I know the best, his name is Dhruva, friendly fellow. And when he's not on the altar, then he is a clerk in the court in Mathura. Yeah, he does clerical work there in the court. Anyway, what can we say? We can say Hare Krishna. But people cannot. The point here, and it's one of the main points in this whole chapter, is that through birth, without taking into consideration other things, a person's spiritual position cannot be ascertained. And if they claim that it can be and it is, they misunderstand and they're misleading you. And that's just a great shame, actually, that people who are on the material level have hijacked the process of Krishna consciousness, and ultimately for name and fame and financial benefit. Don't forget that. Yes, so as Prabhupada says, in this way, they exercise their artificial power over the whole of Gaudiya Vaishnavism for many years. Means a good few, like maybe 400 years, at least 350 or so years. They controlled pretty much the great majority, at least, of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. But Prabhupada then explains that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, when he was preaching like through the 1920s and into the 1930s, Prabhupada puts it in a very clear way. He completely smashed their idea. Completely smashed it. Oh gosh. And Prabhupada says, there was a great hard struggle for some time, but it has turned out successfully. And it is now correctly and practically established that devotional service is not restricted to a particular class of men. Besides that, anyone who's engaged in devotional service is already at the status of being a high-class Brahmin. Well, yeah, that really means anyone who's fully engaged, really engaged in devotional service, including, Brahminical activities, hearing and chanting, and like this, is already at the status of being a high-class Brahmin. So therefore, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was successful. And you may have heard, Prabhupada told some stories about all of that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati he personally used to take the devotees, lots of hundreds, if not even thousands, of devotees on Vrajmandal Parikrama during Kartik. And, it was a big and just very blissful and successful program. But one time when they were approaching Vrindavan town from somewhere, some holy places just outside, some of the local Pandits or Goswamis came and visited Srila Bhaktisiddhanta to discuss, why are you so lenient in giving initiation to people who are like, they're not even Sudras, they're outcasts. And giving Brahminical initiation, the Brahminical thread, giving sannyas to people who are not born Brahmins. Why are you doing that? So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta spoke very strongly to them. And at the end of the discussion, they agreed. Yes, all right, what you say is all right, we accept that. We don't mind. You carry on with your parikrama, and you carry on with your preaching and initiating people and like that. So they seemed satisfied, but Prabhupada explains that when the party arrived at Vrindavan, in the town, that all the 7 main temples were locked from the inside. Yes. So, yeah, the doors were closed. And, it may sound unbelievable if you know that the business people in Loy Bazaar to some degree, but many of the shops were closed. They wouldn't sell anything to the followers of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Some people even threw stones at the Parikrama party. Just see how the times have changed. If you know Vrindavan, you get welcomed with the widest open arms you can imagine. Yeah, to the temples and particularly the shops. Even Prabhupada tells the story how some of these people made an arrangement with the local police chief that we are going to do something to this Bhaktisiddhanta. We're going to do something, which meant that we're going to have him killed. But you please don't do anything. And as I recall, they gave the police chief something like 20,000 rupees. Is that 20 or 25 or 26 maybe? Which he accepted. But then almost immediately he gave it all back and said, no, I cannot be part of this. so they didn't do anything. But it's amazing, isn't it? It is amazing. Because, yeah, anyway, such is life. So, but by his potency, many of those things were turned around. And then since his time, by the potency of Srila Prabhupada, so many of these things have been turned around. Really a lot. But still, us Vittos, we cannot enter the Jagannath Puri temple or some other temples in that area, in Orissa. So yes, I once tried to walk into the Jagannath Puri temple. But this guy, I don't know if he was army or what, but he was in that sort of khaki uniform, and he had a gun. And there were two others, they had these big sticks, like really serious sticks, and they just came up to me and blocked the way, and I turned around. And Krishnadas Maharaj was with us. It was 1979. Krishnadas Maharaj was with us. He went to see the bigwigs in the temple. And one of our devotees, British devotee, went with him. And he said that Krishnadas Maharaj gave the people in charge the source. Wow. He just screamed and screamed at them in Hindi to let us in, but they wouldn't let us in to this day. All right, anyway, such is life. There are problems of that sort on the material platform. So, Prabhupada continues now, we're still in this introduction, verse 1 to verse 4, that it's on the basis of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's position, staunch position, that anyone can be a devotee, and anyone can even come to the highest levels of being a devotee. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, yeah. Anyway, not from a Brahmin family, a sort of Kayasta family. Yeah. So, yes, so now everyone, including everyone, can become a devotee. And that's practically it's definitely one of the most fundamental tenets of what is Krishna consciousness. So, and therefore, Krishna consciousness is spreading all over, and all types of people are becoming devotees. That's paragraph 3. Then paragraph 4. Well, it's just reviewing that point. The so-called Brahmins claim that one who is not born into a Brahmin family cannot receive the sacred thread and cannot become a high-grade Vaishnav. But we do not accept such a theory because it's not supported by Rupa Goswami or by the various scriptures. So now we go on to, it's kind of another section. I mean, whether it is or not, there's a little bit of a change of theme to some degree, maybe not actually. But the basic point, as far as I'm concerned, from paragraph 5 to 8, the basic point is everyone has the right to be a devotee. Well, actually, what happens now, or starts to happen, I should say, is that Srila Srila Rupa Goswami starts to quote verses. You know, we saw last night and the night before. I hope you didn't get versed out. Yeah, too many verses, you know, often with similarities and maybe some subtle differences and sometimes some more clear differences. I hope you didn't get versed out, because you know what we're going to do? We're going to read a few verses and just examine how Srila Rupa Goswami is examining this point, the different perspectives on how material considerations about a person shouldn't be taken into consideration in regard to their being a devotee. All right, so he quotes, let's see, paragraph 5. Srila Rupa Goswami specifically mentions herein that every man and woman and child, ultimately every living entity, has the birthright to accept devotional service and become Krishna conscious. He has given many evidences from many scriptures. And here's one special one. Padma Purana. Vashishta tells King Dilip. What is it, Padma Purana? Oh yeah, okay, Padma Purana. My dear king, everyone has the right to execute devotional service, just as he has the right to take early bath in the month of Magh. Yeah. And then there's more evidence in the Skanda Purana. In the country known as Mayura Dvaja, the lower caste people who are considered less than Sudras are also initiated in the Vaishnav cult of devotional service. And when they're properly dressed with tilak on their bodies and beads in their hands and on their necks, they appear to be coming from Vaikuntha. In fact, they look so very beautiful that immediately they surpass the ordinary Brahmins. Yes, so that's nice. You know, Prabhupada, there's a story of Prabhupada in Australia, just a brief story, that he met with some, like a bishop and a couple of other, like higher level priests in one of the Christian churches, I think in Melbourne, it's somewhere in Australia. And the bishop, the big chief, they're talking, and the bishop says that there are a few Australian devotees with Prabhupada, brahmacharis, and the bishop said, where have you brought these people from? They're obviously not Australian, because they looked effulgent and very, surcharged spiritually. And they were very surprised, the bishop and his people, very surprised to hear that they are Australians, but they've been transformed by Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada was once asked, we've mentioned many times before, Prabhupada was once asked, can you do miracles? And Prabhupada indicated his disciples who were there and said, these are my miracles, because they've completely changed from one thing into another thing. Aha. So these low caste people then, with low births, because they're very seriously taken up Krishna consciousness, are just manifesting like divine presences due to just embodying Krishna consciousness. So nice thing. And then in the next paragraph, Prabhupada introduces and looks at it from a little different perspective, that how is this happening? a Vaishnava automatically becomes a Brahmin. And Sanatana Goswami in Hari Bhakti Vilas, which is the Vaishnava guide, has clearly stated that any person who's properly initiated into the Vaishnava cult certainly becomes a Brahmin, as much as the metal known as Kanksa, bell metal, is turned into gold by the mixture of mercury. Yes, it's a famous verse, Hari Bhakti Vilas, chapter 2, verse 12. Yata kanchanatam yati kangsyam rasa vidanata tata diksha vidanena dvijatvam jayate rinam. As bell metal, when mixed with mercury, is transformed to gold, a person, even though not golden pure, can be transformed into a Brahmin or Dvija simply by the initiation process. Yeah. Tata diksha vidanena. Through initiation, people become like really transformed. This transformation, bell metal is, it's a sort of a common, roughly common metal. It's not as common as just like aluminium or steel, but it's not like gold, it's not like silver, it's not a high level special metal with very high qualities, although it's a nice metal, a combination of different metals. But for that to be changed into gold, that's a huge change. From a relatively common metal, I don't know how much it's worth, to the special metal, which is worth, I don't know, hundreds of dollars at least for 1 ounce. That's a change. So that through the process of initiation, people are changed. That radically, that big a change occurs. Now, of course, we shouldn't think that when initiation is being talked of, that it just means sitting in a ceremony, something along those lines. That's not the point. The point is someone who has accepted a spiritual master within their heart as like the focal point of their life, sort of, you could say, like the rudder, if you're familiar with the term, for guiding a boat, directing a boat, for directing their life, and who has been accepted by the spiritual master also, who is now working with that person to help them progress. So when initiation happens like that, then this change occurs. Aha. So that was paragraph 6. We go on to paragraph 7, which begins, well, it's on, first of all, it's on, I'm not sure which page, but Srila Rupa Goswami warns, however, that if a person is properly initiated by a bona fide spiritual master, he should not think that simply by the acceptance of such initiation, his business is then finished. So yes, we shouldn't, it happens sometimes. I think it's much less now than it used to be. Maybe it was not really that common any time, but sometimes it has happened that some devotee in ISKCON, in Durban, or Joburg, or just some devotee somewhere in Prabhupada's movement becomes inspired to become initiated, and therefore they make a special effort to do the right things and to be seen to do the right things and to not do the wrong things and to be seen to not be doing the wrong things, if you know what I mean. They go out of their way to give at least the appearance of being qualified to be initiated. But it has happened, and I'm sure even now it happens from time to time also, that such a person, after being initiated, having been before initiation, at all the programs, and I mean, if they're a member particularly if they're a member of the congregation, coming to all the temple programs, every Sunday they're there, and they're doing service regularly, and, nicely presenting themselves, nicely dressed as Vaishnavas, etc., and doing service. But then shortly after initiation, then suddenly, oh, what happened? I don't see them. We don't see them so much. And sometimes not at all, actually. But it has happened that at least quite some number, have become far less visible than they were. So that's one part of it. Though we shouldn't think that initiation is the conclusion, is the goal. And once you've reached that goal, then you've reached the goal of Krishna consciousness. On the other hand, Srila Prabhupada doesn't specifically mention it here, but he mentioned it, we read, in Nectar of Instruction. Those of you who are taking part in that seminar might remember that Srila Prabhupada, in one of the purports there, Srila Prabhupada made the point. First of all, he talked about how these people born in the families of Brahmins, in so many cases, they have the tendency to look down on devotees who are not from such backgrounds. So Prabhupada talked about that. And then Prabhupada of course made the point, like has been stated here, it doesn't matter what your background is. If you're really engaged in devotional service, and if you're really progressing in devotional service, then, well, you are what you are. So therefore, you can be given Brahminical initiation, you can be given sannyas. So Prabhupada then went on to make the point that if you are from one of those not very respectable family backgrounds, but now you became a devotee and you got engaged in Krishna consciousness, so now you got second initiation, or maybe even you were given sannyas. But you should not now think that I'm a very advanced devotee, and when you encounter the people from those old families, Caste Goswami, etc., families, Nityananda Vangsa, whoever, there's quite a number of groups, then you should not think that you're better than them and sort of elevate your position within your mind. That's another contamination. It's another type of contamination. Yes, okay. So that was paragraph 7. And then Prabhupada in paragraph 8, it's a nice point. It's a nice point that if one is really regularly discharging devotional service, there will be no question of fall down. Now, that's sort of like what Prabhupada said, that if if you're performing devotional service, what did he say? Oh, well. In other words, simply, no, not that. A bona fide spiritual master under the guidance of authorities can turn anyone to the Vaishnav cult so that naturally he may come to the topmost position of a Brahmin. Anyway, that idea, where are we? Yeah. So, no, it was about being initiated, sorry. About being initiated. Turning bell metal into gold. That a person, even though not born golden pure, can be transformed into a Brahmin or Dvija simply by the initiation process, which means simply by really embracing the initiation process really wholeheartedly. So similarly, in paragraph 8, Rupa Goswami also says that if one is regularly discharging devotional service, there'll be no question of a fall down. Means really discharging devotional service wholeheartedly, really, and just maintaining the standards with real enthusiasm like that. But even if somehow or other there is a fall down, then the devotee doesn't have to follow prayaschita, any process of atonement. Means, if you do a bad thing, then you must do a good thing, a materially bad thing. You must do a materially good thing to balance, make your balance sort of level again. You don't need to do that. You just have to execute the rules and regulations of devotional service. Just carry on, and then you'll be reinstated. And Prabhupada says, it's really nice. This is the mystery of the Vaishnav devotional cult. This is all, of course, in keeping with Bhagavad Gita chapter 9, verse 30. If you're familiar with Bhagavad Gita chapter 9, verse 30. Apichet sudaracharo bhajate mamananyabhak sadhareva samantavya samyagvya vasatohisa. That even if a devotee performs some abominable activity, something really bad, but as long as that devotee remains engaged in devotional service, then he or she must be considered saintly, because they're properly situated in their determination, in the basic conviction within their heart that I am a devotee and I must practice devotional service, and therefore I continue rendering devotional service. Very famous verse in Bhagavad Gita chapter 9, verse 30. Yes, so Prabhupada is reiterating that point here in paragraph 8. And then Prabhupada goes on to, this is, I say, this is a third section in this chapter, from this paragraph 9 to the end. There are 19 paragraphs in this chapter. And basically, the subject here now is, in a very explicit way, and quoting many verses, that bhakti, well, first of all, there are three processes for elevation, as generally understood and presented in different scriptures: karma, jnana, and bhakti. Ritualistic performances are in the field of karma. Speculative processes are in the field of jnana. It means basically impersonal processes. One who is taken to bhakti, the devotional service of the Lord, need have nothing to do with karma or jnana. It has been already explained that pure devotional service is without any tinge of karma or jnana. Bhakti should have no tinge of philosophical speculation or ritualistic performances. So that's the introduction. Back to the point, bhakti, real bhakti, is free from karma and jnana from this point till the end of the chapter. So bhakti is independent of karma and jnana, and we should keep it independent. And one never needs to take their shelter, even in difficulty. One should just take shelter of bhakti. Well, you know what it's like in Hinduism, in Durban or South Africa, but let's just say Durban. We could even just say Chatsworth. But, they have backdoor temples, the famous backdoor temples, where people do, well, not very authentic things. Sure. They even do like, sort of voodoo things. It's a real mess. So, we've had devotees who were initiated devotees. This is going back. At least what I've heard of was going back. Parthasarathi Maharaj told me of, and a couple of other devotees told me of some cases where some devotee in his family, someone got some serious disease and they weren't becoming cured. And they were taken, the initiated devotee, took the family member to a backdoor temple. The one, anyway, I won't tell you which one. Yeah, but seriously, no kidding. And there, they did they killed some animal, seriously. And they did some other things and told them that they needed to do some other things, like do this on Tuesday, do something else on Wednesday or Thursday, and stuff like this. Do you know what I'm talking about? You heard about it? Yeah. And the devotees did it. Means they became so bewildered by the material circumstances that they started giving up the shelter of Krishna and trying to find shelter in some material program. And not just material program, but just some sort of really, ridiculous material program. Yes, Prabhupada tells the story, which he got from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. It's in one of the books of stories from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Prabhupada tells the story. Well, actually, Prabhupada was on a morning walk through a suburban area somewhere in America, and they're walking along the footpath early in the morning, and on the street were parked cars, and there was one car. It was called a Thunderbird. It's a very famous American type of car. So it was a Thunderbird, and Prabhupada stopped and pointed to the car and the name of the car and said, Thunderbird, do you have a Thunderbird in this country? And the devotees said, well, not really, Prabhupada, but maybe it's from some, the old native so-called American Indian folklore or something like that. And Prabhupada said, in India, we have a Thunderbird. He is called Chatak. And this Chatak, Thunderbird, he has special characteristic. He only takes water as it falls from a cloud. There may be there may be a lake, there may be plenty of water on the ground he will not take. He only takes water as it falls from the cloud. This is Chatak, Thunderbird. And even sometimes the cloud gives thunder and lightning. And, the situation gets a little dramatic. But the Thunderbird, never leaves the cloud. Even if there is some difficulty. So Prabhupada said that the devotee is like that. The devotee only takes mercy from Krishna. And even if Krishna, Prabhupada said, even if Krishna gives some thunder and lightning, some challenges, some tests may be there, still the devotee never leaves Krishna. Even though it may seem that there's mercy in other places. Yes. So this is the point here in principle. Bhakti is free from karma and jnana, and the devotee, at least the steadfast devotee, will not take shelter of karma and jnana, even if there's some challenge in life, but will only take shelter of Krishna. So we'll carry on from there on Monday. Paragraph 10. It's when the verses really start coming, explaining all these points. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki. Srila Prabhupada Ki. Go Premanande.